Hello, my name is Peter Cinnamon and you're very welcome to this. It's a podcast and it's all about the Irish League, where this week it is D-Day for Linfield and their European dreams. Can they bounce back from that defeat against Shelbourne at Tulka Park and win out at Windsor, or will be another year of European nightmares for the Blues? Elsewhere, we'll talk about all the games from last Tuesday, the weekend's matchups. We'll sift our way through this latest NIFL fan survey, as well as ask, are these Friday night games unfair on part-time teams? All that and more on this, your latest weekly edition of Kick and Match. We aim to do this come rain, hail or shine, and we are very much recording this while it is shining, and it is that special bit of sunshine. It's bank holiday sunshine, which just feels so much better and nicer. But we're here committing, putting the work in for you, covering the league that you love. And when I say we, I don't mean just me. I mean my co-host today. It's Mark McGuiggan.
Hi Peter, how are you?
I'm doing very well. It's a nice thing that you're here because there's lots of Linfield things to talk about, but also it's like a big bouncy jumbo week, I feel, because we'll touch a wee bit in the Tuesday games, talk a wee bit on the Saturday games as well. There's lots of things to natter about.
Yeah, plenty on in the Irish League. It's never a dull moment.
This time next week, will we be talking about Linfield in Europe? I think the short answer is probably no. And a big part of that will be what we saw last week at Tulka Park. Out of 5 red chilies, how angry were you when you saw a red card whipped out for your boy Fitzy?
5 before I saw the replay, 2 afterwards. We'll put it at that. So we'll average out about 3.5.
What are they doing?
It was a bit silly. It was all a bit of a mess from everybody. But once you watch it back, I think there's no way, shape or form in the current game you can just say, yeah, that's a yellow card. He didn't mean it, but he did connect quite highly. So yeah, we're sort of stranded on that one.
Connected. That was the problem with that big high boot. And when we look back at this European campaign for all sides, red cards is not a trend that we particularly wanted, but it's definitely a trend. Has every single team, and Linfield's done it more than once this year, has every single team had a red card? Because
I think so, yeah.
Gannon, and I know there's some, if you're talking to Reds fans, they say the Casey one shouldn't have happened. But I mean, Lauren did it twice, did they? Paul O'Neill?
I believe so. We've done it twice as well.
Oh, and it's what's so weird about it, because these are totally irrelevant and they may feel connected to us as fans because it feels somewhat similar to the Bigorama red card for Dungannon against Portadown, because that was also a high boot, a significantly higher boot, I would argue. But simply, we need to be a bit more savvier in these big games, do we not?
There's being savvy, and then I think the referee was expecting Fitzpatrick to have eyes on the back of his head to sort of see who was coming in behind him. I think we just have to be cautious. You know, you watch the Champions League, you watch Europa League, whatever. There will always be a refereeing decision that us, as sort of, British Isles team, let's put it that way, we all sort of think, oh, that's a referee from Spain or Greece or something. That's why he's given that. It wouldn't be a red card over here, where we know fine rightly now that unfortunately you can't get away with things that you used to anymore. I think I've been talking to a couple of people who have obviously been in football longer than me and know football a lot more than me, and they're like, oh, back in my day that wouldn't have even been a booking, but we're talking 2025. We've got VAR. There's no way around things anymore. So yes, there's being savvy, but I think we just have to appreciate that that's just the game now.
Totally. And in that area of the pitch, ball's coming high. Do you need to challenge it with that trailing foot? No, you don't. So we'll not focus on it too much more, but that was the tone setter for the rest of that game, because it all, going into that game, we knew, I think the matchup at Tulka Park was going to be the one that really set this up on if Linfield was going to have a chance. They still do, but it's so many what could have been, because off the back of that red card, Linfield still give it gusto. And we could be sitting here only being 3-2 if it wasn't for that missed penalty.
Yeah, very poor penalty. For sort of, you've touched an open wound there, Peter, but it just seems to be the case of every single European campaign for Linfield is what could have been. Certainly in the past 6 or 7 years, it's always been, so near but so far for so many. different reasons and opportunities. We've seen even this year. I think we've been saying, what could have been against Shelbourne in the first tie, and what was, two very, very good games, but much tighter games, I have to say. I don't think Linfield did themselves any favours in that first game, second leg, with the red card to Ben Hall, which made things so much more difficult. But there's just so many, hurdles that we just keep stumbling over, whether that be the first hurdle at times against teams we should beat, or teams that are very good. Let's not deny Shelbourne how good they are, but they're still not one of the best teams we've ever played. They're good, but they're not the best. And so many what could have been for us in Europe recently.
Do you think if it was 11 on 11, the argument probably is, yeah, it would be a different score? Your reaction to going down to 10 men, and perhaps Shelbourne took a wee bit of their foot off the pedal there, but being so close, how much they were dogged and got stuck in and fought. If he had 11 players across 90 minutes, this could be poised very nicely going into Windsor. It ain't over yet, let's be clear about that, but it's just a mini mountain to climb.
I agree. I don't think it's totally over, but we've certainly given ourselves an absolute mammoth task on Thursday night. I think if it was 11v11, we'd be talking about maybe a 1 goal lead for Shelbourne, which then leaves you with a lot of hope going into a home tie. But I think it was the fact that it was Fitzpatrick was sent off has really sort of numbed us down, because you could see as you were watching the game, a lot of our play goes through Matthew Fitzpatrick, and a lot of our attacking play, of course, has to go through Matthew Fitzpatrick. He's our main striker. He's, well, certainly at the minute anyway, he's our main striker, and a lot of the play that's in the air has to go through him, because Kieran Offord isn't as tall as he is. He isn't as strong as he is. I'm not denying Kieran Offord is a great player. I'm not saying anything about him, but he is not that tall, aerial, physical presence that Fitzpatrick was. Every time a ball was coming forward from Chris Shields, who sort of was playing his old school, nearly quarterback role, spraying balls left, right, centre, wherever you wanted it, Offord was trying to take the ball down, chest it into nobody, because Fitzpatrick was the man who's meant to be getting that aerial duel, flicking it on to Offord, but Offord seemed to be having to do 2 roles at once, which is totally impossible in a game of that magnitude.
This Fitzpatrick renaissance really is something to behold. I know it's been rumbling around for a couple of months now, but you would have been surprised this time last year. I think if Linfield fans were going to be as crestfallen as they are going into this game at Windsor Park, going in without him. How is Healy going to replace him in the aggregate? Is it simply McKee or somebody like that, or is he going to change it up?
If you're asking me about David Healy's team selection, I don't think there's a person in the world can answer that. But
Sam Roscoe up front or something?
Yeah, get the big man on up front.
From the off.
Hall, yeah, just go for it. Harry Maguire-esque. I can't see him trying to use any of our bench as a similar role to Fitzpatrick. There's nobody that fits that profile on our team. It's going to have to be a bit of a sort of change up somehow. He's going to have to fit. I think you're right in saying McKee's probably going to be our best option, but it's just not going to be the same profile or the same role. We'll have to see how that goes. Maybe somebody playing as a 10 and Offord playing as, a centre forward, which is very, very difficult for him, because we've seen how good he is out on that left-hand side. Even the right-hand side he can play as well. He's fantastic, just cutting in. But it's going to be a difficult team selection for David going into Thursday.
Shape-wise as well, he's going to have to go for it, because if we're sitting here 55 minutes, 60 minutes, 2 goals to claw back, and there's no denying Shelbourne are going to go for that goal to kill you off as well, you have no real option bar just going for the jugular and trying to go for it early.
I think if we're 1-0 up at half-time, there's a lot of belief, but we do have to go out and actually go at them. You're totally right. But we saw in that sort of maybe this very short period on Thursday night, I was going to say 10 minutes. I don't even think it was 10 minutes between our first goal and the missed penalty, that despite us being down to 10 men, Shelbourne were there to be got at. There was absolutely, no chance that they were. I personally don't think they were going to go forward if we'd have scored that penalty and score another 2 goals and have that, it was never going to be a 4-2 game, because I think they were a bit on the ropes and a bit rattled and a bit actually shell-shocked by how decent we had performed for that wee spell. It was just such a difficult one, considering the penalty miss. So I think Shelbourne are there to be got. I think that there's a chance for us.
I agree.
We have we've performed quite well in all three games, let's be honest. Considering, when the draw was made, everybody thought, oh, we're going to get absolutely hammered here. It hasn't been a hammering. We've been beat by the odd goal, but I think if you're right, if we're going in sort of, 45, even on the 60 minutes, and there's no goals, we'll start losing a wee bit of hope and things will start to get a little bit hairy. Shelbourne get a goal and it's an absolute mountain. It's Mount Everest style. If we go 1-0 down and we escape it, it's probably one of our best results in history. But yeah, I don't know. Don't know.
Any chance of a Callum Morrison redemption story here?
Oh dear. I think that's up to him. If he wants to redeem himself, he can do it. If he wants to apply himself and see what happens.
He got 10 minutes on Sunday.
He got 5 or 6 minutes down in Dublin and it didn't look great, but I just can't see him. I just can't see him coming back into the fold at all. I know I'm very baffled by the whole scenario, but I don't know whether he's the man to, get that goal. I don't know whether he wants it or not.
Well, talking about him, because he was penciled in to be this Cooper replacement and different player, of course. But if we're going back to that, aggregate analogy, it looks as though it's that man offered. Man can't stop scoring at the minute.
Yeah, it's fantastic watching somebody.
Except for the penalty spot.
Yeah,
But I mean,
it's okay.
he is this bright spark, this exciting, young, attacking talent. You Linfield fans have been dying for somebody like this.
He's very difficult to pinpoint who he actually resembles for me. Like, there's nobody in my time at the Blues has sort of been that sort of, everyman for Linfield. We've had Fox in the box players, Glenn Ferguson, Andy Waterworth, who give them a chance within 12 yards. The ball's going in. Kieran Offer can do that. Goals from outside the box. I don't I don't think last season Linfield had a shot outside the box, never mind scored a goal outside the box. Seeing someone just, taking a half chance and just taking a shot, they're going in because he's getting so much power behind him. He's fantastic to watch. I'm really, really happy with him so far this season. Definitely been our best player so far. 7 goals in, such a short space of time. 4 goals in the league in 2 games. If we're going by that, that's what 76 goals in the season we're going to get. No, we'll not go for that. But if he scores,
Well,
there's 30 goals in him. I think
you've said that. You're absolutely right. I think everyone's talking about 30 goals for Offord this season, and I know I hate that whole all competitions, and he'll probably score 5 past Knockdamuckley Rangers in the County Antrim Shield or something, right? But genuinely, he's got it all. I said at the start of the season, if he does well, Linfield are going to do well, and he's spearheaded everything, and he does nip around the box, buzzes around, gets the ball, I can shoot. But you even saw there on Sunday, he picks up the ball, forces a turnover himself, and then converts it himself. Those are goals out of nothing. That was Cooper's thing, and Offord's replacing that very nicely. And from the physicality, from the football intelligence, from athleticism, he is just very much too hot to handle at the minute.
he's one of those players that'd be really frustrating to even try and mark because I don't know what he's going to do next. And I'm not quite sure he knows what he's going to do next. But he always ends up with a positive outcome, which is what we've needed.
He genuinely only needs half a yard.
Half a yard, he's gone. You look at that goal on Sunday. You look at the goal. I can't quite remember who he scored it against in Europe. Similar position, out of absolutely nothing, and the ball's in the back of the net, and you're home and host.
So perhaps, as much as you're mourning Fitzpatrick not being there come this Thursday with the sounds of Sam Fender ringing through Windsor Park from Boucher, at least you have Offord, build round him there. And if we were to reflect there on Sunday, game at home against Cliftonville, potential banana skin, not that you were travelling out to the eastern Uzbekistan or anything for Europe, it was only down the road to Dublin, but that's still a game you have to come back, concentrate on, knowing that what one person described to me as it's the biggest game in Linfield's modern history all over again on Thursday. With that looming, you still start with many of the big boys, and you just want to keep those reps going. And it felt to me Linfield go 1-0 up and shut down the shop, because particularly that being 1-0, Cliftonville just didn't seem like they had anything that was going to unlock that back line at all. They've got little sparks like McWoods chasing down every ball and they're passing it around like they always do. But they are a team, particularly now with Reece Campbell being announced that he's out for the season, lacking in that edge up top.
Yeah, I think Linfield's sort of performance, we had decent performances in every area of the pitch, which saved us a lot of hassle. There was no real area where we sort of looked, off or slightly discoloured in any way, shape, or form. Chris Johns has been solid so far since coming back in. He didn't really have much to do apart from, catch a couple of corners, catch a couple of long shots. Scott Whiteside especially had a very good game yesterday. Kyle McLean was also solid. Kyle McLean's a 7 or an 8 out of 10 every week, and that's the players you love in your team. Fitzpatrick, solid again. Offered also, that goal is fantastic. Solid performance, work rate's all there, everything's there. And I think that's what shut Cliftonville down yesterday. We were just having a pretty solid game across the pitch. Brown was also, I have to give him a shout out as well. I think he's been a great signing so far, since coming in from Larne. But in what you're saying about Cliftonville, I just don't know where the goals are coming from. You can see the frustration. Jim Magilton sounds frustrated at everything that's going on, especially on the pitch there yesterday. You could hear every word he was saying, and he just seems he's crying out for something that isn't quite there. Hale just wants, you can see in it, you can see in him, he wants this team to be great, but he knows there are a few missing pieces. Johnny Addis only coming on sort of with maybe 25, 30 minutes to go also was a bit confusing. I don't know why a fit Johnny Addis doesn't start. Maybe he wasn't fit enough. We're not to know that, but I think Cliftonville fans know, and I think all the fans in the league know now that they're going to have a very difficult season unless they sort of get the ball rolling here. Gormley rolls back the years for the 100th time and produces 15, 16 goals this season. That's what they're going to have to rely on, and I don't know. I just don't know where the sort of struggle ends for them at the minute, because I was going into yesterday's game and I don't think I've ever been as confident of a game against Cliftonville. I just knew that I had said we were going to win 3-0. I don't think we were sort of fit enough to win 3-0 looking at it, but I just did not worry about Cliftonville hassling or even giving us any trouble.
By the time next week's podcast is out, the transfer window will be shut, and we've been looking at this kind of end of window scramble as probably the place where Cliftonville was going to do the real meat and potatoes of their business. So we'll see if we have these season-defining players that we've seen come in. Not particularly last season, but the season before, we all knew we were talking about. But it's a team in limbo, in stasis, because of this takeover, which has somewhat hit the brakes. We don't really know what's fact and what's fiction. What we do know is that it hasn't went through, and all this smoke when it comes to parties going back and forward, questions now if it will in fact go through. We don't know what's happening there, but this is unwanted noise at a very important part of the season for Cliftonville. They've had to play a number of the big boys, as well as losing to Bangor. It feels like we're going to have the season that they expected, and that is in the middle class, with a hope that it's top 6. But where does it come from? Because it's this striker issue, and even at that, it's the thrust from midfield outside of Hale, and you can't have a team full of 6 Hales. He's kind of the only man trying to get it up there because they've invested so heavily on their back line and are lacking the dynamic wing backs that they had this time 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like even the substitutes that were coming on, you could just tell a couple of the new signings were just trying to get bedded in. They were really, really pressing those fullbacks to sort of try and get into the game and get involved and press a bit higher and all this. It just wasn't working out, and I think you're right in that sort of the midfield is just so it's just downplaying it. There's nothing that's ever gonna be a spark. The only man on that team that's really gonna light the touch paper is Hale. We all know how good Hale is, and as you said, you can't have 6 Hales. If a team had 6 Hales, they'd win this league easily. I think, this year.
They would also
But
concede like they're Crusaders, but still.
yeah, but they'd score goals and they'd enjoy themselves and everybody would be happy. But it just doesn't seem like it's going to be that sort of. They're not going to be pressing anybody for a title. Solitude's their big sort of savior. A couple of good games up there to get the ball rolling on the road and see what could happen. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. I just don't know where it's all going to end.
Before we talk about all the other games that have happened this week, I want to jump in here and want to talk about NIFL's survey, which they put out last week. It is called the Have Your Say survey. You can go on to the NIFL website. You can find it there. It's a fan survey, and it says here in the little bit of the blurb that's here, this survey is a part of a wider research project led by Play It Forward Consulting in partnership with NIFL. The goal is to gather fan input and understand how a calendar shift could affect you. So it's not just me and other media people banging on about this idea of changing the league schedule. We all know about 18 months, 2 years ago, NIFL was saying there was going to be a vote in 5 years. We don't know where that is right now, but it is NIFL who are asking the fans about a change in league schedule. Your feedback will directly inform league discussions, club planning, and future policy endeavours. The survey takes around 3 to 5 minutes. Have you had a hook at this, Mark?
We're doing it live. Doing it right now.
I think there's like 20 questions. I've got some of them. The first one is, do you support the idea of moving the season to run between different months? For example, between May to February or June to March. Your own personal opinion on that would be?
Eh. That's sort of where I stand with it. Like
I'm sorry to tell you, is not an answer.
I'm torn. I'm torn. I can see pros and cons for both. I just don't. The May to February is a terrible idea. I think it's one that who has ever suggested the May to February? This is the first time we've heard of it.
It's a strange in between, because what's interesting about that is that it's May to February, June to March, both those ideas, which fans are being asked about. What's interesting about those two? Both include Boxing Day.
Yeah, well, they know Boxing Day is the big spender.
But
that's
neither
why.
of those is saying what about, which would be in line with the League of Ireland, the whatever it is, February, November. So we're not even in that.
February. No, it's just two random,
So
lineups a month. I just can't see that happening.
it's hard to really distinguish. Do you want it to be May to February or June to March? June to March might be, there's a bit more heat, perhaps, in that the final days of the season aren't being rained off by February showers. So it's hard to decipher which one you want there. But it does then go on to talk a bit more about May to February calendar. So what are your biggest concerns about the May to February calendar? Is it poor weather during the end of the season? Well, I just talked about that. Overlap with summer holidays / other events, people will say that. Clashes with other sports, example, GAA, and I know cricket fans don't particularly love the idea of it clashing with their main season. Disruption to fan routines, I think that's probably number one for everybody, even though I think the things above that are ticking that off, or no major concerns. So that is kind of the main bits if you're talking about the issues there. When you talk about summer football, I think the big issue people have with it is that it just takes most of us away from what we consider the mainline league schedule. All the big leagues in Europe follow the August to whatever it is, kind of April, May time. So taking us away from that is definitely a big experiment. And without saying one way or the other, I would strongly guess that if the Irish League moves to a different schedule, I don't know if junior football will follow.
I think that they're gonna have to sort of marry them up somehow. But I
Why?
just
How?
don't. Irish Cup,
They're two separate entities and often are completely opposed on most votes.
yes, I agree. But if you want the Irish Cup to exist, you have to have the junior clubs involved somehow. And if their seasons are totally different, then how do we make the Irish Cup sort of like a national cup? If you're just inviting the top, three leagues or whatever the five in this new pyramid's going to be, there's all these teams, these small teams that want a cup run. It's not going to happen anymore. But then on the other hand, do these teams actually care about the Irish Cup? Do they know that they're going to get to the fifth round and get absolutely trounced by even a subpar sort of, a championship team playing their second team? Do they know they're going to get trounced by that? Most likely. I chat the amateur league footballers, and a lot of them say, "Oh, we're playing in X, Y, or Z Cup today. Hope we get beat," because it frees up games. They don't want to be playing in these cups that they know they're going to end up not winning. So that's maybe where you're looking at that. But
But should
it's just
full-time clubs be asking the opinion of Moira United on how they play their
more
league?
Albion, actually.
Is
More
that is
Albion.
is that actually a team?
The Albion, yeah, great team.
The Albion from Ireland. Okay.
The Albion. Albion.
Rich Hill Rovers, whatever. What like why do they have a say on what Coleraine with all their investment, what they should be doing with their league?
Yeah, like I mean, if NIFL were, totally confident about the situation, they would be just telling us what's happening, and that would go. You say
But
that,
then they would be
all the,
criticised that they're ignoring fans.
of course, but let's be honest, this survey isn't going to change how NIFL actually do things. This is just to sort of gauge how many fans are for it, how many are against it. But they're just going. This is just going to be sort of like a. This is going to be a sub note in a meeting somewhere that nobody ever gets the minutes of. This is going to be, oh, the fans don't really like it, but we like it, so we'll go with it.
Well,
That's sort of, to me, that's what's going to happen.
some of the questions here are interesting because I don't know how much the fans can answer this or really can or should have an opinion. Some of the ones I've picked out, and pretty much most of the answers here are big yes, small yes, don't know, mini no, massive no. It's things like, how do you think the proposed change would affect your ability to attend matches throughout the season? I mean, it probably would be easier, but we'll leave that there. Do you think starting the season in May would help NIFL clubs prepare better for the UEFA qualifiers? I don't think personally I can answer that question.
Yeah, that has to be something you ask the professionals.
Yes, so
I don't know.
yes, I don't think what my answer is on that. If I think it's yes or I think it's no, I don't think my opinion should be asked on that. Because I don't have, how do you expect the May to February season to impact the overall quality of football? Well, if you think it's a good thing, you're going to say yes. If you think it's a bad thing, you're going to say no.
You don't
I'm
know how it's
against
going
it,
to
but I think
affect
the
it.
league will be better.
The league's not going to improve in quality no matter when we play it. It's going to be the same football, only we might not have, a slip and slide in the corner of a pitch because it's not rained on, but we also might because we're also playing in December into February, which is, those are the 3 months that are notoriously the worst for travelling in Northern Ireland. I think any fan who wants to go to a game will find a way to go to a game as far as they want it. I can remember, finishing work at 3 o'clock and flying down into Windsor for 20 past three. If you want to be there, you'll be there. And there's nothing that could stop you from being there unless your car breaks down in the motorway or something. So I don't actually know whether the movement of the league from the winter into the summer or whenever we're going to move it to is actually going to affect it because the fans who want to go will be there, rain, hail, snow, or below.
As someone that isn't letting off fireworks in the name of a league schedule change, if you're told tomorrow it's happening, it's moving, would you prefer they just went for the full blown February to November timed league that would be akin to many other teams, many other leagues in their similar position to have summer leagues? Or would you prefer them trying to accommodate Boxing Day some way, somehow?
I mean, why would we be the only league in the world to play, that May to February? It doesn't make sense with any other league. If we want our league to be more professional, you need to have it lined up with at least one of the leagues. Republic of Ireland have this, you know, February to October, as we were saying, October, November time. All the other leagues, the Baltic leagues, the Scandinavian leagues, they have to play at that time because of, weather conditions and all this nonsense that we don't actually have to deal with. Our weather here is pretty good compared to the likes of, HJK Helsinki, who have to play in a dome for half the year because the snowfall on the pitch is so impossible to play on. Um, we have to align it with some form of football, and we can't just come up with our own fancy idea just to suit ourselves. just because we like playing the day after Christmas Day. Boxing Day was cancelled during COVID. Did I miss it? Yes. Did we still play the Glens? Yes. So it didn't really matter on what day it was. I think Boxing Day tradition is fantastic. I love going to the football on Boxing Day, but I mean, if it was cancelled, like, what do we actually what say do we actually have? Because the game's cancelled because of a frozen pitch. Sometimes as well. So there's every chance that it could get moved or cancelled. So I genuinely don't know whether I think they're banking on Boxing Day being a big earner for the teams. Therefore, that's why they want to have Boxing Day regardless.
What does your gut tell you on where teams and the top flight sides in particular are sitting on a move? Do you still think it's split quite significantly? Or do you think there's more teams who are interested in trialing this move than maybe fans would expect?
I think the players, Chris Shields posted a tweet there the other day, and he was very vocally against this whole May to February one. Tomas Cosgrove also replied to it, and a couple of thumbs up or whatever it was. Basically, there's two of the league's biggest names of two of the league's biggest clubs saying, May to February, are you joking? Do you want me to give up my summer holiday and my Christmas break with my family just to suit you, just because you want to move the football? I don't think
So
that.
why are footballers different to many other professions that work all year round, on Christmas Day sometimes, during the summer? Football's a short career. How is that an argument against players saying we possibly can't do summer and Boxing Day over that Christmas period?
I just think it's a total different scenario of employment as well. It's the tradition of, I get my 2 months off in the summer. You imagine you saying to a teacher, right, you're working from May to February. See how that would go down? It's the tradition and it's the culture around, we get this break and I don't want to give that up. So you say to a teacher that, oh, you're not getting your 2 months off in the summer. Nobody would want to teach anymore.
Well, I don't think players are going to skip out on the chance of earning money, and by all accounts, a lot of Irish League players are doing pretty well for themselves. Not all, a majority are semi-pro, majority are amateur. But for that striving towards doing something like this, and if it's helping pushing forward the league, which is obviously the idea behind this, getting a better experience for fans. There's many people. Nurses are working on Christmas Day and other times. If you maybe work in performance areas, for example, if you're an actor, you're probably very busy at Christmas because you're doing pantos, you're doing plays, you're whatever. So for football, it's not ideal. And look, as someone who covers the league, whatever it is, I'll be losing the same as well. But you kind of back the players in saying, look, this isn't our full-time job, or a majority of us, this is not our full-time job, and this would just put a lot of pressure on us as players and our extended families.
Well, if the players say that they're not going to play in the league, then what are we actually going to go and watch? Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's going to get to that stage where, the players are boycotting and all this jazz. But I just don't think that this idea itself has got the legs. If this survey was coming out and saying, we're going to attempt a trial, and mirror that of the Republic of Ireland, I don't think there would be too many fans who would give off. I mean, there would be, but there wouldn't be this sort of random sort of uproar that everybody's having.
Do you think, and it's highlighted because Linfield are playing Shelbourne for the second time this summer, and of course we all saw what happened when Lauren played against Shamrock Rovers, who are doing great things in Europe themselves. The success of the League of Ireland over the past 20 years, do you think some people who are in decent high power positions within this league are thinking we need to help improve this league, and we're trying to play copycat rather than looking other ways? Like, is all of their success based on the Summer League?
I genuinely just think they're better players. That's just it. That league has built itself up. Um, and I think that most Irish League clubs lose to most League of Ireland teams every other week. If you were going for that whole classic, oh yeah, let's have a all Ireland league. It just most teams in Northern Ireland would lose to the teams in the Republic. It's proved itself over the last few years. You might get a draw here or there. Linfield drawing 1-1 against Dundalk in the whole United Union Challenge Cup. Okay, this is great. things, it's a level playing field. Let's play them again. Oh dear, we've lost massively. 5 or 6 nil, whatever it was. I can't remember. Bad night. But I just think the standards are different. No matter whether we play, you know, whatever days that we're going to be asked to play, I just don't think it's the same standard. I think it's just a gap in quality, and it is what it is. On a good day, an Irish League team could beat a League of Ireland team, maybe if they were having an off day. But we've seen through, so we're now going into the fourth game of Linfield Shelbourne in this whole game that seems to have lasted all summer. And Linfield have not won one of the three games, two losses and a draw. What does that say? It says even the best team in Northern Ireland could not beat what are Shelbourne this year, fifth or sixth in League of Ireland this year, regardless of the calendar.
Well, the argument is that
still
if they were in full flow, they'd be flying, and maybe all the Irish League teams who are lacking in quality compared to their opposition is that if they were doing it pretty much rocking and rolling since, well, you see, you talk about it starting in June, you'd still be pretty. You wouldn't be massively well prepared, would you? Like if your May, if the league started in May, it's not a huge amount. You're probably like 2 months into it, which is still better than nothing. And you would incorporate Europe a bit more into and how your planning is. I think the bigger argument, or what proponents of a move of schedule, is it's trying to counteract the winter months. So this doesn't fully counteract, but there's no doubt there is a dip when it comes to attendance and interest in the league, particularly during January and February. You remove a bit more of the Premier League. I'm talking about English Premier League competition by moving it. They're not fully losing that, of course, but there's an element of getting a bit more of a chance by yourself. So does your gut tell you that we could be a bit closer to this vote than maybe we thought a month ago?
Yeah, I think we're closer to the vote, but I don't think we're actually any closer to what the outcome of the clubs is going to be. I think the clubs are up, they are the ones that are going to have the final say on this. And I think more clubs than want to let on want to give this a go.
I would agree with that assessment.
But they don't vocally say, "Oh, look, we're playing in the sun. Wouldn't this be a great idea for summer football?" They can't just go out and say that, because that sort of shows all their cards and gives it all away. I would say it would be a fairly tight vote, and I wouldn't be surprised if it went something like 7-5 one way or the other.
And if there was to be a vote, let's say next week, and it didn't go the way of summer football, if we're calling it our league schedule change, would you really believe that, okay, there's the vote, we'll not talk about that for the next 5 years?
No, it's on everybody's lips every single summer.
It's there. So
you're sitting in May time and there's no football on. Oh, wouldn't it be great if we were playing, if we just started the league and all this? It's on everybody's lips, and ever since I followed Irish League, it's all everybody's talking about in the summer. Oh, wouldn't this be great and all this? But there's so many pros and cons either way, and as we know in this country, nobody really makes a decision very quickly, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Plenty to talk about if and when this all comes out, and go do the survey anyway, because then we'll see the results come out and what you might think about. If you think it would improve match day experience, do you think summer football would increase the league's appeal to broadcasters or sponsors? I don't really talk to them, so I couldn't tell you, but I'm sure if for summer related people, yes, but for others, no. Let's sift through the games that happened over the past while, just because we were chatting about Cliftonville before we got distracted there. Good result for them against Larne midweek, I thought. 1-1, hectic. Like, we're talking about the red card there for Linfield during the week. Maybe they just felt as though they wanted to get in on the action, because that Tuesday round of games was bonkers. Penalties, red cards, everywhere. I felt like I should have got sent off just for the crack.
Yeah, we weren't involved in this madness, and you just sort of have to sit back and watch everybody go nuts. Absolutely crazy.
Tuesdays when all the games are happening, either have there's 3-0 and a 1-0 somewhere, or they have the chance to go boogaloo, which they did last week.
Yeah, it was pretty bonkers. Like, it was quality watching. But as I say, it's just very nice to just sit back and let everybody else have the madness while we're sort of sitting at home. Yeah, madness across the board, but definitely a good result for Cliftonville.
Yeah, even though there was a red card, was a missed penalty as well for Lauren. Like, just
Yeah, McGee. Yeah,
yeah,
just is it is what this season's going to be. As I said earlier on, Solitude's that fortress. Joe Gormley grabs the goal. There's every chance that a couple of teams will go to Solitude and slip up, as they've done for the last whatever 20 years. Every team struggles up at Solitude. Even those sort of top six teams can go up there and drop points, and Lauren have proved that. Probably a bit tired from their whole sort of schedule with the European games still. This whole new manager thing or lack of manager is going to really affect them as well. But again, it's going to be a waiting game to see who comes in there and see who can steady the ship a bit.
the real bonkers game was down at Clandyboy Park. Bangor and Crusaders 3-1 it ends. Fraser Bryden looks to be the bright spark of all these players that have come in. If there's one lesson to be learned from that game, it is don't let him on his left foot, because that's how he scored all those goals. He looks like he has pace. He's going to get in behind, which is exactly what the Crews need. But again, and we saw a bit of that on Saturday as well for the Crews. This team looks like a paper towel at the back, because even at that, was it 2 missed penalties for Bangor as well as their own red cards between players who were, I think even some of the coaching staff got red cards as well. There's just a manic game where we now all know that we should be talking about Fraser Bryden as the good player for the Crews. Disappointing for Bangor, just that they didn't get a point or something out of it, but
Yeah.
It doesn't instill a lot of confidence in either team for me.
When you're missing 2 penalties, I just don't know if you can complain about losing a game of football.
No.
I've heard from Crews fans that their new goalkeeper's a bit ropey. They're not quite sure how this is going to go this season defensively.
Well, he was already rotated out. Tuffy was back in.
That's what I mean.
Come
That's what I
Saturday,
mean.
so
it,
Digaba, he looks physical and big, but clatters into boys.
Like he's played in the lower leagues of Scotland. He's not gonna be lightweight. You have to be sort of strong and assertive when you're playing in those lower leagues. But it's the 2 penalties for Bangor that will be the killer, because those are just you miss 1 penalty's bad. Missing 2 at home is almost disastrous. Especially when you're playing against the top 6 team. I always sort of gauge teams that have been promoted against bottom 6 teams. Crusaders are going to be in around that bottom 6 this year. Maybe they could be 7th, could be 8th, could push up if they wanted to, whatever. If they can sort this defense out with a couple of free transfers or whatever this is going to be. But Bangor really, it was a missed opportunity, is what I'm trying to say.
Hugely. It's scattergun, I think, going through these games it will be. So on Tuesday, Bangor 1, Crews 3, Cliftonville 1-1 with Larne, Coleraine 2-0 against the Swifts up at the showgrounds, Glentoran tick past Glenavon at home 2-0, and then Ballymena beat Portadown 2-0 at Shamrock Park. Good weeks and bad weeks across the board here. If we're talking about teams who have had a good week, Ballymena, they go from beating Portadown 2-0 away from home, and then followed up with a 4-0 battering of Bangor on their own patch. That's 3 for 3 for them. Yes, they haven't played against any of the big boys, but as we see with other teams, just building up these points this part of the season is vital. And to go from last year where they lost their first 4 opening games, and there's a team who's potentially copying that feat and then going on that big run. It's nice that they're going on a nice run to start the season, because you don't not want to be playing against Ballymena right now, home or away.
No, definitely not. And it looks like they've shored up that defence as well. 0 goals conceded across those 3 games. We sort of thought that Ballymena had spent very well. A large amount of money being spent up at the showgrounds, but getting it to actually tick is a very, very difficult thing. A lot of new signings in, as we know. But Jim Irvin's done a stellar job getting that to click so early, because as you said, last year was a dreadful start, and then they shot away up the table. They're top of the league, in and around maybe Halloween time, was it? Maybe before that. But their next run, Larne, Glens, Cliftonville, Linfield, Crusaders. That's where we find out.
But the pressure's off.
Yes, the pressure's off. But we find out
The pressure's
whether
off, the
they're,
confidence is
yes,
high.
I agree, but we find out whether they're worth their weight in gold or whatever it is, because it's going to be a very, very difficult run for them in the next five.
I agree. We see their ceiling a wee bit more, don't we? We've seen
Yeah.
that the floor looks like it's going to be mid-table at least. They're not going to have this struggling to try and gel. They're already beating three
Yeah.
of what's expected to be three of the bottom four across the board. What do we think of the navy shorts?
No, no,
They've
not
had
very
navy shorts
traditional.
before, but it
When
doesn't.
though? I don't remember it. I can't
I
remember this.
remember your man Jenkins running about with navy shorts. I don't mind them, but I feel like if you're a side like Ballymena, like stick with the navy shorts all the time, or stick with the white shorts all the time.
Yeah. Don't confuse us. Don't confuse us. We're
Yeah,
creatures of habit in the Irish League.
yeah, totally.
But yeah,
They are a team who I think look very organised, particularly at the back. They've got that deep back line. Matty Clark looked like he's fitting in there as one of the centre backs. You've got, O'Donnell being such a big, experienced veteran head there. I still think they're lacking a real danger man up top, but Ben Kennedy's scoring a bit here. The Corbally hype starting to build ever so slightly. I don't know how dynamic he is, but I think not getting caught on a banana skin like Bangor early in the season, I think, is important at home. I know Bangor had this child playing in goals who probably got his GCSEs on the Thursday beforehand, or maybe was even too young for that. But there's a statement that's been made there. 2 away wins against, yes, lesser sides in the league, but can be difficult, tricky games. But they've come out the other side of that with 9 points. Ballymena have 9 points on Glenavon. That's huge. And they play one game less.
yeah,
Like, I don't
yeah,
want any,
huge.
Ballymena revisionists. I'm not saying it's gonna last forever, but I don't want people coming out here saying, "Oh yeah, absolutely, I always expected Ballymena to be strong this year," because I was being laughed at by people when I said top six.
I don't think you're far wrong. We've seen that Crusaders are going to have a mixed bag of a season. We've seen that Cliftonville are not going to be, pushing on to solidify a place in the top six. I would suggest between fifth and seventh for Ballymena is a fair enough guess at the minute. But as I've said, they're gonna have to keep it going because it's difficult fixture list coming up, I think. But when they're beating those teams below them, they're staying out of that nonsense of a relegation playoff that they were in 2 years ago, and were very, very close to going down if it wasn't for a thunderbolt of a goal.
Yes,
They've really they've impressed me with how well they've gelled so quickly. But proof's going to be in the pudding against these. Their bubble's going to burst very soon in one of these games. But it's how they perform. A 2-1 loss to a Larne or a Glentoran or Linfield
of course.
isn't the end of the world for Ballymena. And if they can beat those teams around them, get into the top six, that's a fantastic season for them.
They've decided to ying ever so slightly while other teams have yanged, and maybe just finding that piece up top is easier to find compared to just building up this strength, this solidity from the back moving forward. Have we seen that guy Ali Gould? He's a big boy at the
Not
back.
yet.
Monster.
Haven't seen Ballymena yet. I've only been at our 2 games.
Keep your eye on him. Another team who had a good week, and again, they're not playing against absolute top tier opposition, but they're sitting top of the league. Glentoran, I had a feeling this is how they were going to go. Not particularly thrilling, not particularly exciting, and maybe aren't winning at a canter, but they're just winning. Home, away, keeping it tight, or at least relatively tight from a scoreline at the back. And they're just building upon points.
Well, 6 goals in 4 games, 0 conceded. Perfect record to start the season. They can't complain. There will be no car park protests for another 2 weeks. They're fine now. It's all good.
At least
At least
2
there's
weeks.
2 weeks of freedom. I believe Jordan Stewart's had a very, very good start of the
He
season. I
has.
believe McElhenney was fantastic on Saturday. They're calling him like McEltini or something really sad. I can't get on board with all this nonsense. But just like I was saying about Ballymena, they're gonna have to see how they get on against the sort of teams in around them. But I will be on record to say, fair enough, they've had a good start to the season. That's okay. They can have a good start, but we know that there's a very long season ahead, and it's those cold winter months in the car park where things start to go wrong. But no, have to say, very, very good start. Andrew Mills looks a fantastic goalkeeper. He's absolutely massive. Not quite as massive as GLI. I don't think anybody ever will be, but a really, really good start to the season for them. I just fear if there's injuries on that side, things might get a little bit tight for them and things will start to get a bit hairy. I don't know whether their backline has the pace that it's going to need to keep up with some top level strikers. Imagine Kieran Offord running at some of those boys.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's sort of where things might get a bit tight for them. Marcus Keane has been a fantastic servant to the Irish League. He's still only 33, but he feels like he should be 43. One of those players. But he's just top level defender, but has just lost that yard of pace, which is where they might struggle against the top teams. Danny Amos has been great the past, as soon as he signed for Glentoran, he's been great. So we'll have to see how he gets on as well.
I think that could have been a result where if Glentoran draw against the Crews, you can see how they're going to maybe middle out as the games go on. But I think that's a good result against the Crews. They kind of wrap it up before half time against a team who, as you said there, they don't have, as a backline point of view, they do not have bags of pace, and that seems to be one of the true advantages which the Crews have. We talked a wee bit about Crusaders there in the Bangor game. It's starting to play out that they are an erratic team, and I wonder, are they going to get, like, Cliftonville are getting a wee bit of joy in that it was only a 1-0 loss to Linfield. It's 1-1 against Larne. They get a draw against Coleraine. Crews just don't look like they have that stability themselves to kind of eke out those kind of results against other teams. Yeah, maybe a Tuesday night down somewhere. It's a bit crazy like that game against Bangor, but they just could be losing a lot of games like this, I worry.
Think on the Glens note, anytime any team goes to Seaview and picks up a result, especially a win, of course, but if you come away from Seaview, maybe you haven't played, not at your top level, and you've grabbed the draw there, that feels like 3 points at Seaview. Really, really tough place to go. Has been for a lot of teams. But the Glens got their business done early, 2-0 up at half time, and I obviously, I wasn't at the game, but it just settles you going into halftime, especially the timing of that Kelly goal as well. Right on the stroke of halftime, really, really settles you, really tears up the book for Crusaders halftime team talk. Apparently Thorndyke non-existent on Saturday as well against his old club, of course. But the Crews, if you looked at those first two games, home to Carrick and away to Bangor, you would have wanted them to pick up 4 points there before having to host the Glens. That's where things were going to begin to get tricky. And of course, we all know that madness that happened on the opening day can happen to anybody on the opening day when you're not quite up to 100%. But it's just going to be a bit of a higgledy-piggledy season for them again. It feels like the rebuild last year didn't quite work, so they've stripped it back to the foundations and they're having to start another rebuild. I think this year's rebuild was sort of what they needed last year. They didn't quite have the clear out they needed last summer. And, given Cadell and sort of this sort of blank canvas to work with, it sort of looked like, they were having to, strip the wallpaper and do all the work themselves last season. And now this year, they've got this bit of a blank canvas and we're going to see, splashes of colour here and there of what it's actually going to be for them.
They stuck a wardrobe against that wall that needed a new lick of paint, and now they removed that.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. So. They've got the wardrobe moved.
Come on, we're getting the analogies here going today.
Analogies.
They could just pop around this new middle class in the league quite easily. It's just one end of it. It is at the minute. Pay your money to see the Crews because you're going to see goals at the minute.
You're going to get something. You might not know what it is, but it'll be something.
You're something. Another team that we're talking about, teams that are doing well. Coleraine, if they were able to sneak a goal past Cliftonville there last Saturday, maybe sitting here themselves with 12 points. They eke out a win against Dungannon on Tuesday night, and then they follow it up with what seems like a helter-skelter crazy game against Glenavon at Morinview Park. And I know here we are getting the big book of cliches out. But winning that game late on, that's what top teams do, don't they?
Well, that was what I was going to say. So that's me. I've got nothing left to say in this game. Yeah, that's what wins you a league title. That's the other wee quip that we're going to get in there. I think the red card basically helps them out a lot as well.
Oh, let's talk about it. It
Yeah,
is a shocker.
it's really, really, it's a very Irish league decision, really, isn't it? It's one of those ones where every week we expect it couldn't get any weirder or worse, and it does. Every single week there's something mental happening, and that's this weekend's was just at Morvey Park. He's lost the head a bit. I'll give him that, throwing the ball and all this, but just you don't have to send him off, especially that late into the game. Totally turns the tide for Coleraine to sort of assert themselves on the game and get that late goal through Shelbourne. But just total, usual Irish League refereeing.
What do you think the ref saw?
I think he
Was it a
saw.
push?
I think it was sort of the backlash of the bounce of the ball and the throw up. He must have said something as well, which hasn't helped his cause because they're getting very sort of angsty about this whole, don't speak back to me, I'm the referee sort of thing. But if he hadn't have given the bad decision, he wouldn't have had to say anything. That's the way I sort of look at it as well.
Oh, I've been at a few games just on refereeing stuff. What have you made of this ball boy, non-ball boy, cones
Yeah, we had
malarkey?
we had cones this week at Windsor. I only noticed that for the first time this week.
Oh, I've
Um,
been at a few games and fans are I don't think fans know the rules just yet, but it's either you've got multiple balls and multiple cones, or there's like two balls.
yeah, it's like
There's one ball and it's for the ball boys.
there's multi-ball and then there's like single ball or something. I remember
Yes.
not
I
this
mean, I know
year.
Portadown have got a really bad reputation for ball boys, which is earned. But that first game that I was at between Portadown and Glentoran, there was like balls being thrown in. The referee's like, not that ball, other ball, and fans are going ballistic. So that is something I just don't know if you've noticed. Other games didn't seem to be the situation at Stangmore Park when I was there on Saturday. But yes, so yes, it's been a weird week for the refs across the board. All the red cards on Tuesday, more there. I'm hearing other people in the media talking about this idea of the sheer amount of yellows and reds being given out. I know at the start of the season it's the type of time where if a player's tying his shoes, getting a yellow card in the 5th minute for time wasting because of some sort of new directive or whatever. But you've got to
Yeah,
feel for Glenavon because they are also going through their murderer's
it's
row
robbery. Like,
of games. They are down near the bottom of the league without a win, and they've only got more big boys trying to fight. They will think they deserve, based on their performance and the red card, they deserved at least a draw from that game.
I
I
have to say,
bet
I
you
was
were.
gutted when I checked the score afterwards. I saw it was 1-1. I saw it was 1-1, and I was out with another Linfield fan, and we were like, "Oh, happy days! It's 1-1. It's 1-1." Checked the score, and I was like, "I cannot believe this. They've scored." It just screams at one of these teams that are not going to go away in Coleraine in that sense. But yeah, Glenavon have got to feel sort of so aggrieved by how that's ended up. A 1-1 against Colerane's good even before Coleraine became, 2025 Coleraine, as in Moneybucks United here. A 1-1 draw at home against Coleraine was a good result. They've been a top six team for sort of the last maybe 10 years. Kind of having that sort of topsy-turvy time in and out of top six messing about. But it would have been a really good result and a real something really to build on. But just absolutely robbed off them, I think. I think Korean fans will think they've got away with one on Saturday, to be honest. But I think there's just so many things going on at Glenavon at the minute. This whole Isaac Baird saga that's just come out and basically said that he's signing for somebody, but he never told anybody. It's like leaving work without notice sort of thing. I don't know how that actually all adds up, but
Yeah,
it doesn't look good
it
for them.
looks as though his time at that club is set to be over. He's being made available there. I mean, what's the truth and what's hearsay? But you know, well, even Paddy McLaughlin's talking about the transfer dealings. It looks as though his time away from Glenavon is well, it's going to happen pretty soon. But is anybody going to pay the fee? He's a player that hasn't really kicked many a ball in earnest over the past season and a half. Is he someone? He's young, he's talented, he's in that area midfield that there's not a huge amount up and down the league of young, you know, developmental stars. He's got a big stature, but is he worth, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 grand that maybe Glenavon would want?
If it's going to be 50 grand, there's absolutely no chance. Considering what Linfield played for Kieran Offord, if we're using that as a benchmark, Linfield paid what, maybe three figures for Kieran Offord. I don't think there's a team in the Irish League that looks at Isaac Bird and thinks, yeah, I'm going to spend real amount of money on him when they look at the other options that are available, across, the scouts will be dipping into, English, Scottish, Welsh. We like a top level Welsh player in this league.
Weirdly, yes.
Um, yeah, McManus is what I'm talking about, random players like that. Who was the one that the Crews had? I can't quite remember his name. It's gone.
Dean
But
Ebbe
anyway,
came and then he went.
Dean Ebbe, 10 points.
Yes,
Yep,
he
that's
went
very good.
absolutely. Come on, but actually, podcast host, I'll be able to get these all day.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't. It's one of these random
So
signings.
that's another bit of noise there at Glenavon. They've got their big games coming up. Paul McGuiggan seems to be the little bright spark that's come up. Lombardo, bar the red card, also seemed to get a bit going there after a shaky start to the season. So, I mean, Paul McGuiggan, like, as a young man, a lot of pressure on his shoulders if for whatever reason McDade and O'Connor aren't going to be your regulars. They're looking for the likes of Peter Campbell to play a bit more games and all the rest. So yeah, we'll see what happens if they had the schedule of Ballymena, and I guess they had one of those games because they actually played against Ballymena. Would they be in a different position? Probably, but this is what I mean when it comes to just sometimes the momentum's with you, and if there's a team that has momentum, it's Carrick Rangers. What are they doing here? 3 for 3,
Yeah,
9
Baxter's
points.
some boy.
And I was at that game on Saturday. Baxter Ball is alive and well. It's back in 2025.
Was it ever dead? That's the
Yes,
question.
it was.
Was it ever dead?
I think it was.
It was okay.
I think
It was
it's
dead.
back.
It died for about 5 years. Barring their, whole sort of idea of, let's only play well in the Irish Cup sort of thing. It's an absolutely fantastic start to the season. And I have to say, I had Carrick to go down. And I think I was among, maybe 50 to 60% of the fans of the league that thought that Carrick were going to be that team that went down based on the signings, based on, this sort of, older age of player that they've signed, the style of player that
They were ropey last year.
They were terrible last year, horrible. But I think Baxter tried his whole sort of, this new sort of fangled idea of dipping into teams down south and signing, a couple of random players who hadn't worked out in the league before but got a second chance. He's gone with proven this summer. He's gone with, you have played in the Irish League for a very long time. Would you like to come to Carrick and play with us? He's got the band back together, and it's working very, very well for them. And if anybody had Carrick for three wins in a row at the start of the season, they could predict the lottery numbers, because that's fantastic. Really, really good start for them. You said that Dungannon just bullied off the ball pretty much all the time.
Yeah, this is a weird realization, I think, for me and the rest of the league, because like we looked at Carrick Rangers and maybe in the winter months the wheels could fall off, and it doesn't really matter because they're just points accumulation at this point. But to talk about the good things with Carrick, Nathan Gartside looks sharp, good shot stopper. We saw it lock goal. He had plenty of experience last year having to deal with wave and waves of attacks, but he can get the ball, he can distribute it very easily. He's a good shot stopper, brave in his positioning. You have this back line of McCullough and as well as Jimmy Callagher, and you would think Dungannon Swifts, they should be able to get in behind those boys. They didn't. They just didn't. And the main man for them, I know they're without Clucas, and we'll have to see if and when he comes back for them. We don't know what the injury is and how long, but Joe Crow is just a man mountain at the middle. Everything goes through him. He sets everything up, and pretty much you have Lecky, you have Gibson, which is maybe not ideal on this kind of wing side. You have Heatley on the other, and they're just constantly, ball goes out, and it's all just scattergun. They have a little burst of pace. Lecky's up top bullying people, and Matthew Snoddy has a bit of energy going around there. Aidan Steele, what a find he is. I know he did good stuff for Ards, but he's that great midfielder who is definitely going to battle around with everybody around them. He can pass. He can be a wee bit inventive, but he's just a terrier, bags of energy, but also has a bit of creativity at the top. So you sit back and you go try and beat our man mountains of McCulloch, Callagher. Jack Scott's a pretty beefy boy as well. They've brought in McKay as a bit of nip down the other side. I think you have to physically fight this team. That's what's going to be. You're going to physically fight this team because they're going to sit back and sit in and go try and beat us in the air. And Dungannon Swifts had no one that was going to beat them in the air. And they looked very good for the first 20 minutes, passing it around. Leo Alves, ping, 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 ping. And you'd think if they just were maybe a bit more bold and a bit more confidence, because Swifts are coming off 3 losses on the bounce. Yes, they had probably 2 of the most difficult fixtures you could have in Coleraine away and Linfield away. And they are lacking a couple of players. I just think the narrative is going to come up here of John McGovern, oh my goodness, John McGovern. I think that's false. I think he's clearly a bit of quality that could maybe be the difference maker. But they were a team that maybe just didn't fight hard enough, and Rodney just seemed gutted after that game. Like he's pretty much telling some of the boys across the board, stick around or get out. But looking back at the goals, I know he's the tallest man on the pitch by a decent whack. You can't be conceding those goals. It's just route one simple stuff.
Basic football, but it works, doesn't it?
But this, this is what Carrick could be. Basic, but it works. Like even Luke McCulloch up there, getting a player, getting that ball in, that was nice. But those goals happened within, I know highlights can be deceiving, that happened within 5 minutes. You're like, well, game over.
But especially, if you're asking Carrick Rangers with that back line, as you've just said, giving them a 2-goal advantage and then saying, come on, you have to hit us for 3 here. Any team in the league will look at that and think, oh my goodness, what a challenge this will have to be. Because they're so solid at the back. Jimmy Gallagher's maybe lost a bit of his pace. I feel that those fullbacks are very, very shrewd, smart signings. Actually,
I like Jack Scott a lot.
Jack Scott, if things had gone well at Linfield, he'd still be in that Linfield team, and we wouldn't have to be watching Kirk Miller play left wing back, which is going to be the bane of my existence this season. Anyway, him and Mackay as 2 fullbacks with those sort of 2 classic Irish League defenders, it's going to be so difficult to break down. Now, I noted this to you as well. They didn't even make any subs.
Bizarre.
They just stuck with it. It was going well.
I mean, Crow looked like he was done after 30 minutes. He was working so hard. So how Cal Cherry didn't get a run out, but they have something on the bench. I'm not saying to be knocked.
Mac Galatas on the bench is good. I think he's a very strong option.
I think Wade, again, big enough, physical enough. He's a happy pressure reliever. I don't think they've got an alternative for Lecky, and that's going to be a lot of pressure on him. But as we all know, it's not like headers and doing the Jordan Owens thing's really his game. He's actually kind of better on the ball, but he's maybe lost a yard there, but he was loving it. Like, and particularly with momentum, it's all about momentum. That's a couple of boys who are used to winning, thinking this is great fun here, boys, and I'm no doubt this is what Baxter needed. Bit of momentum, couple of wins, saying they doubted us. Here we go. Yeah,
and it's the same situation as Ballymena were in. 9 points at this stage of the season, absolutely massive. They're steering their way clear of a whole sort of scrap now. As we say, the bleak midwinter that comes, and injuries and sickness and whatever happens, and a tough run of fixtures, and not being able to stick at this current sort of level of performance. You don't know what's going to happen. But 9 points on the board, 3 games played, absolutely spectacular start for them.
This is unsurprising, and we do have to take it slightly with the context of, like we said, the Linfield and Coleraine away. Alarm bells are ringing for Dungannon. Not for total collapse here.
No, I'm not saying total collapse, but I think the whole sort of happy summer bubble of a trip to Liechtenstein, or wherever it was it Liechtenstein? It was Liechtenstein. And everybody's going on their summer holiday. It's like going back to work again after your holiday. This is what's happened here. The cold light of day has hit them, and the McGovern thing's bigger than I think that a lot of people are letting on. He was the spark, but if you say you've seen them this season. I've seen him this season. I think, any team can lose on any day at Windsor, especially sort of a team like Dungannon. But I just didn't see an output for them or an out ball. There was no player that's going to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and say, right, we're better than this. I just don't know where that lies this season. It's going to be now. If they had a different manager, i.e. Dean Shields, I'd be very worried for them. If they still have Dean Shields, they have Rodney McGuiggan. I believe that he's got it in him to sort it out, and I think everybody in the league thinks that too.
Like I like Sean McAllister. He's come into the league. So they're not all ticky tacky small short players, but it really stood out against Carrick. Like I like they should, if the weakness of Carrick is getting him behind them, Dungannon should have exploited that, but they just didn't have, be it the players or the confidence. Like they buzzed about first 30 minutes or so, but they weren't able to convert. And from there, I just couldn't believe by how like Carrick were so savvy about it all. And I do think we've known this anyway, that the weakness for Dungannon is at the heart of the back line, and it was exposed on 2 occasions, and that's all it needed to be. But it kind of keeps happening. I just wonder how the goals will come, because they're playing nice football, but like losing to Portadown and the Carrick at home, I know they'll come around again ever so slightly, but it just sets them up that even at this early stage, they've got to really get the burners on if this top 6 is going to repeat itself.
Yeah, nobody's gonna show them that sort of but nobody's gonna be naive against Dungannon this year. I think there were maybe teams that sort of thought, it's only a flash in the pan. Last season they were fantastic. I think everybody knows what to expect from them this year. Has become a bit wise to it, at least, as well. I think Andy Mitchell needs to come into the game more as well.
Yeah, I think he was the one player that could have made the difference. So yeah, look, they're missing players. Dylan wasn't starting, Knowles wasn't starting. Yeah. There's a bit of young players in there, so this was not the best of the best for the Swifts not playing. No. Their big Arama was out due to suspension, but it could be ever so different for the Swifts. But there's 2 things that have come over the past while. One, and it's been openly talked about or seen, it's if you go up and you really press them up high, you nullify them playing from deep a wee bit, and you can counter them a wee bit, and also if you can physically push them around, which of course can be tweaked, but there's just a little tiny bit of the glimmer gone. But that's the natural flow of football. We talked there about Portadown winning against the Swifts. Really dreadful week there. Lose to Ballymena at home, and then they go up to Larne and get thumped.
I mean, the Larne games, that it's sort of another one of these sort of cool light of day moments that not everything's going to be rosy in the garden this year for Portadown. There are going to be games where things are going to be difficult, but it's away to a top 6 team. It's going to happen once or twice this year for every team that they're going to get a big defeat. But it's how they bounce back from that this week. I think it'll be a really, really telling tale.
But like the manner of the goals as well are.
The first one was horrendous. McCurry's just totally switched off, played it straight to Larne player, and even his attempt at a clearance just wasn't there either. It was just a real calamity for them. One of those nights where you just knew after that first goal that it was all going to turn on them.
Like we all, as fans, we all do it for your club. But I was having a conversation with Keelan, obviously off the back of the podcast last week, and he was saying about the Glentoran game and about how they lost to Glentoran at home last season and whatever. The results are similar, and I think they probably lost to Ballymena as well. But they actually got good results against Larne last year on the whole. I don't know if they lost to Inver Park, but if that's a loss, which they would have got a point or something last season, they're going to have to pick it up from somewhere else. So, you can see there could be a regression. Maybe they're lacking players. Like, maybe it's a shape thing. There definitely isn't that out ball at the top. They still have that kind of attacking dynamism that I thought they could have. But it's a bruising, isn't it? What do you make of then, talk from Portadown. You know, I know they're going after a lot of Friday games themselves, but just that it was unfair for them to play Saturday, Tuesday, Friday, which kept on being referred to as 3 games in 6 days, which I don't know, irked me.
3 games in 6 days, but anyway, I just don't know who's come up with that, but anyway.
The semantics.
I just think that Portadown have had a different headline every week. I know it's been this whole thing about, being, one of the team to get relegated and all this. That's been a big thing. Currie's now come out and said about this whole Friday night thing. I just don't know who it actually suits. Like whose agenda does this suit? Because him giving off about it, it doesn't change the fact that they have a game to play. Is it, an attempted excuse for, oh, we're playing Friday, we'll get beat because we're not full time? I think there's a lot more of those players that, will be closer to full time than what they actually think. He said about, players, being scaffolding. Not every single player in that Portadown team's on a building site all day.
You could kind of expand that out, couldn't you? It's like saying, oh, that's unfair for that team's full time and that's we're at a disadvantage. Well, the other side would be then go full time then. We can't afford that. Well, they can't because they've made these either sole players or got investment and do whatever. It's like a team of amateurs saying, oh, well, we can't pay players. That's unfair. We have to play them at a certain time. Because this conversation will happen time and time again. This is not a Portadown thing. It's across the board. It's when Larne and now Glentoran are looking to go down the street of playing Friday night games. And I'm sure teams will go, oh, we're having to go to Belfast and they're on a good winning run and they're a full-time team, etc. They've had their breakfast. Meanwhile, other players are doing whatever. Like, are we now supposed to punish teams because they've gone full-time and say it's totally unfair?
We cried out for years that the league wasn't professional enough, and now the teams are going professional. We're crying out that they're not amateur enough. Again, it's just this whole sort of idea of just complaining for complaining's sake. I just don't know. I just don't know whether the advantage is actually massively there. You could have players who are very, very well rested for that Friday game. Yes, in the sort of professional team, but if they're training on the Thursday and somebody gets injured, there's an advantage for playing Friday night. You get a wee tweak in your knee or your hamstring on the Thursday, and you might actually be cleared up for a Saturday afternoon. But you could be looking at a situation where they've trained on Thursday morning. He's tweaked his hamstring a bit here. He can't play. Happy days. This is great for us. There's pros and cons to everything about it. And then you'd be saying, if they're playing on the Sunday, they'd be saying, oh, our players have to go to work tomorrow. They'll be maybe relaxing a bit. They'll not be giving it 100%. So it's just people who are stuck in their ways. I think everybody enjoys a Saturday at 3 o'clock. I can't deny that. That's my preferred kickoff time. But if there's going to be times in this league now, especially in the modern day, where games are moved about, and do both teams have to agree to that on Friday night? Is that the case, or is that just the Sunday?
I think is it
the home club?
Yeah, if you've agreed, it can be moved by the league. So, hey,
yeah.
Look,
but it wasn't even on TV or anything, which was difficult too.
No.
So that's
it's not a new suggestion. He's not the first one, the only one, and I doubt it will be one that will go away for the next while.
No, definitely not
for sure. We'll look ahead to this weekend, and it starts on Thursday. Linfield, big week for them. Their European futures on the line, and then they have a big title clash on Sunday. We talked about it very briefly there at the start of the podcast there. It's simple. Linfield have to go in there. Do you think if Europe goes away, this could impact the mood in the camp ever so slightly, just because there's almost felt like it was like a 6-month build up to this? I know all of Europe are these kind of decider games, but if it's not good on Thursday night at Windsor Park, how does that squad react to missing out in Europe again?
Yeah, well, let's put it in the context. When we lost the RFS in that disastrous penalty shootout, which is actually 3 years ago today, so that was very
it's been repeated a lot.
Yeah, it's very sad that keeps popping up my timeline. Potentially the worst Friday in existence that Friday.
Who was the player who had the shot? Like, should have stopped
Tammy
it.
Palmer, never forgiven. Also
cool.
joined the Glens.
I thought you know that. Yeah.
Don't worry, I haven't slept after. Just genuinely awful night. So Where was I? Yeah, you look at that game, we lose in the penalties on the Thursday night, and then we went up to Taylor's Avenue and had an absolutely stinking performance there and got
Yes,
beat.
you did.
So I feel and fear that we could be in the same boat. Potentially not as much because we had the advantage against RFS, and how it went down was sort of, like some sort of disaster film for Linfield. This game might not even go ahead because there's a hearing tomorrow night to see whether it even happens, which is something that could only
For
happen.
what's this? Sorry,
There's a hearing tomorrow night to see whether the game goes ahead. The Blues want it cancelled, basically. So
because of the Sam Fender
because
concert.
no, the Coleraine game.
Oh,
Yeah,
great,
yeah, yeah.
fair enough.
We're not going to cancel because of the hypersonic missiles going off
Yeah.
on the other end of the road. Um, but it's the Coleraine game might not go ahead. But
What would be the argument for that?
the fact that we were playing on the Thursday night, and
Yes,
that's
but
literally it.
if we're it's the flip of the Friday, that do professional teams not play two games in 4 days?
No, apparently they don't. I don't know. I don't know. It is what it is. But we'll definitely be up against it on Sunday if it goes ahead. I can't see us winning on Sunday, to be honest. I think we'll be up. We looked tired second half against Cliftonville, so I cannot imagine how tired we will look against this high flying Coleraine team.
On Europe, just as on a brief note, how's it going to end? It's a heartbreaking 1-1, isn't it?
It's a 2-1 Shelbourne, is what it is. I have belief in my heart that is, a 3-0 win, and everything's rosy, and we're big on our holidays and all this. Cole today hits reality is that Shelburne will press us, and they'll get a goal later on and kill the whole thing.
Do you think no Europe for Linfield? Do you think that makes them go right? We go again next year, or does that make them question again that push in January? Because you could be sitting here next year. If Alford does get us 30 goals, what's his value?
It has to be in and around, 400K, doesn't it? We have to look at it that way. His value doubles if he scores that amount of goals in the league. But who's willing?
He's very
It's who's
young.
willing to pay it. You've teams in Scotland that have
Yeah.
more money than enough that'll throw. The looks. You look at the like Stephen Robinson at St Mirren. Um, he's looking at.
Clearly, he thought that it was
Yeah,
not worth keeping around
that's
and
what I'm
cashing in.
saying. He thought he wasn't good enough for Scotland in the SPL. So where's that money going to come from? We don't actually know. On paper, he's probably going to be worth that, isn't he? But it's one of those cases that somebody's only worth what somebody is willing to pay for them in the Irish League. I think.
I think we're talking about Offord's fee all season, and I'm just waiting for the first Linfield fan to say that he's going to be worth $1 million. That's what we're waiting for.
I've already seen one.
Well, I do think the age profile and the fact that he's a striker is a massive positive. And, we're seeing players in the League of Ireland. Yes, they're all teeny poppers going for over $1 million. I think we saw a new one there going for 2, going to Arsenal eventually. But these are young fellas, so you never know. We could be edging closer to another record if you're believing what the league bonus fee was again. A big record come the end of the season, or he could be an Linfield legend and stay there for 10 years, never go anywhere else. But yes, I think 1-1. Unfortunately, I just really don't want to see an early goal for Shelbourne because it just really kicks you in the stomach, and that's not nice. We'll go in reverse order then. We'll go back to the Saturday. What a matchup this is. Glentoran against Carrick Rangers.
Yeah, two unbeaten teams. You thought that. Baxter Ball comes to the Oval. It's a nice idea thinking that Carrick are going to continue this rich vein of form. But as I said for Bangor against the Glens, I feel that the Oval's a big settler for a lot of teams. Really, nearly gives the Glens a goal in every game against the smaller opposition, and I think the Glens will just edge this. Yes, there'll be all these sort of ideas of what if Carrick break away and all this nonsense, but I think it's a sensible opinion would be a 1-0 to Glentoran based on how they've played this season.
I think really why that will happen is I think Carrick they may struggle. It might be a penalty, as in I think Glentoran have the ball players, and Ghana have them as well. But I think Glentoran have enough players on the ball that they can pass around, and just try and squeak that in. You talk about getting in behind. If you can just bring Carrick out of their shells ever so slightly, and then bing over the top, it's Jenkins. And 2 weeks ago or last week, I did somewhat talk about how Jenkins needs to show a bit of that killer instinct, and I think he showed it actually over the past week. So do it again. I like Glentoran 1-0. I think might be a set piece, but again, you can see it being 2-0 and 5 for 5. I think it's exactly the type of trajectory Glentoran want to be on, in and around the top part. And then they have the confidence, and that's what it is. It's confidence, it's momentum.
100%.
Carrick Rangers, because they have that 9 points, they can play in a different way. And Cliftonville against Glenavon is next game we're going to. Like, Cliftonville sort of don't have that. They don't have that swagger, but maybe Glenavon have that just Rottweiler-esque, yeah, we're away from home, but who cares? Because they can go up there. This can be a difficult game for Cliftonville. It's Paddy going up to Solitude. I see it similar to Glentoran. I think they could sneak this 2-1 and heap a bit more misery on Glenavon. But I mean, if Glenavon are going to go up and pop up against anybody, it's probably going to be the Reds, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's total opposite of that Glens Carrick game, but neither team have had a very good start to the season at all. Glenavon have only scored 1 goal so far this season, which doesn't, edge well for them. I think it needs to be a win for Jim. It really does need to be, because that place could be absolutely ferocious if Paddy McLaughlin goes up there and nabs 3 points. I genuinely, it needs to be 1-0 Cliftonville for that to settle. I think that's doable for them. I just, as I said, only 1 goal for Glenavon, but this is two teams who cannot score, but seem to sort of sit back enough. So I can't see it being a big crazy, 4-4 game or anything like that. I think
Well, wouldn't it just be the lark if that was the case? But yeah,
clip that. There's no way there'd be goals in this game, and it ends up 5-all or something ridiculous. But yeah, 1-all. Sorry, 1-0 Cliftonville for me in that one.
we talk about momentum. We talk about pressure. It's huge on Rodney now going to Bangor, because you don't win there, and that's a 3-point cushion. Could be 6 points by the end of it. It's a literal 6-pointer. I'm not saying Swifts are in a relegation dogfight at the minute, but like, that loss to Carrick is now 9 points. They've got to climb up against Carrick, and now they could do it across the season. They're likely to play Carrick 3 more, or a minimum 2 more times this season. But like, it's funny because Bangor come up, they have this big, nice opening game, and they needed that because tougher times were going to come. You can already see a tiny bit of the gleam and the shine. The smiles are slightly fading from their faces. And what people don't forget, what people do forget about last year in Bangor, is that they kind of fell all over themselves last year to get up. Like, yeah, they had these great spells, but they were a momentum team. So I think Dungannon are going to win this 2-0, but who's going to be shocked when it's like 1-1 going in the last 20 minutes and Bangor score 2? Like they could do exactly what they did, because it's a Clandy boy. They could do exactly what they did to Cliftonville all over again. So I mean, an early goal for Dungannon would settle them, but you could see complacency sneak in as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Feeney has Bangor well enough organised at home. And, this is going to be one of the games, as you said, that they need to get a couple of points in to even try and, keep themselves in a good sort of spring of things. I think that both teams are sort of in this sort of lurch at the minute. Of course, Bangor had that fantastic opening day win for themselves. Dungannon just haven't got off the ground yet this season. I don't even think they've got going. I've gone 1-all because I think that Dungannon are a better team than Bangor, but Bangor's home game gives them that sort of, it levels it. I think it's a 1-all for me.
Yeah, 2-0 Swifts for me. We then go on to Friday, Lauren Ballymena. Big clash here. I think there could be goals. I'm going to jump out and say 2-2, but we're all going to start getting that. We're all going to jump aboard that sky blue hype machine if Ballymena can go do what they did last season early on and get a win against Lauren.
Yeah, two teams that have had, of course, really good starts to the season. We slip up for Lauren, obviously, it's Solitude. I feel like these teams play each other every other week. Ballymena always play Larne, always, and it's always at Inver.
Let's not forget, it's the Slamish skirmish.
Oh dear, I'm gonna pretend that didn't happen. Shane
It's happening.
Hill
It's a
Derby
thing.
and all this nonsense. I don't know.
Oh, that's rubbish. No,
That
the
is
Slamish skirmish is far better.
okay. I don't have a good name for it. I think
I
Larne.
do. It's called the Slamish skirmish.
Okay, I'm gonna hear this in my sleep tonight. Um, I just think Larne's attacking prowess and how they performed against Portadown at home last week. I think they're going to win 3-1. I had 2-1, but I'm going to go 3-1. The quality of the performance against Portadown, albeit a very bang average Portadown performance. I just think there's definitely a 2-goal cushion for Larne there in that game.
Yeah. 2-2 is what it is for me. And then the final game, also a Friday night, down at Shamrock Park. It's the Crews against Portadown. Neither team jumping for joy about their starts to the season. Both of them only have 3 points to their name. Crews having played one game less. Like, low-key kind of a big game for both sides going into this. There has to be an advantage here to Portadown. Being at Shamrock Park, it's a grass pitch, having had more time together. Like, they can get caught on the hoop here, there's no doubt. But you would think maybe if Portadown go back to basics, play the team that they have, that they know what they're doing, they should eke something out of this game. But I can see this being a weird 0-0. I think I'm going to go 1-0 Portadown, but I can weirdly see Crews really snapping a result here.
Yeah, I've gone the opposite. I've gone for that this game's going to be the mad one of the weekend, and I've gone 3-2 Crews.
3-2
Crews.
Crews.
I don't really know how these are two teams that have been totally unpredictable this season, Crews especially. I just have a feeling that this is going to be the crazy game of the weekend. There always has to be one. But I've also predicted 3.
Well, the Crews are proven to be the crazy gang this season,
Yeah,
so why
I think
not
we'll stick
them?
with that theme. Definitely goals in them. It's just two really, really different teams. And it's going to be a really, really good game, I think. That's just my thoughts on it.
Mark, it's been a delight having you back in the podcast. One thing I want to talk about, because one of the things people miss when they don't go to the live show, and it was a lovely, great live show to kick off the season. You were there, but you didn't come alone.
No, the gang was back together, actually, yeah. The boys.
The gang was back together. You missed your chance. You had no bucket hats to sell, but Fly Nets was back.
One night only.
For one night only.
No, it was good to get out and enjoy a good podcast together. Instead of having to sit and edit our own. So yeah, it was good to be out. Good to get out of the house and all that nonsense. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed that night. Really, really fun. Looking forward to the next one.
Well, that's two of you now that I've said that. How's your one doing, by the way?
Oh, he's great. He's got a wee dog now too, so everything's fine and dandy. All good.
Brilliant. And everything's going well, obviously, for Glentoran, so he's having a great time.
Yeah, he's just living the dream.
Mark, a pleasure as always. You'll be chatting to me plenty of times between now and May and April. At least when we can talk about it May and April, soon I'll be like, there'll be plenty of chats between now and February next year. Until then, tally-ho.
Thank you very much, sir. All the best.
Thank you very much for tuning in once again. Great to have our good friend Mark McGuiggan join us. If you don't follow the podcast, you very much should. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's Kicking Match on there. If you're on Spotify or you're on Apple Podcasts, there's a way to subscribe to this podcast or follow it in a way. There is hundreds of you out there that do this. It really helps the podcast, but also for you, it means if I upload it a wee bit earlier, a wee bit later, you don't have to flick through and check. You'll get a notification as soon as it's up. Just go to the Kick and Match main page, search for a little either wheel or dot, click on there, follow, subscribe. It's free, and sure, if it's annoying you, knock it off. But until next time, and I hope there'll be a next time, I will see you soon. Chat to you later.